Wow. What do you guys think about that? Steven, I'm watching here. I'm going, what is this guy about to say about my podcast? Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing or what the heck's going on here? But I will tell you, I do what I do, but I am a big teddy bear in person. I am missing all of you guys and our hallway hugs from SaaStock Dublin, SaaStock West Coast, and all the other SaaStocks I've met so many of you guys at. So today is a bit different. It's going to be obviously virtual, and we're going to be doing a lot of talking back and forth to you guys. I am watching the chat real time. I see your pretty faces joining. Go ahead and let me know, guys, real quick, because I'll customize parts of the conversation around your businesses. So feel free in the chat to just post what business you're building, and if you're a founder or an investor, I'll look at that stuff in a second. So what are we going to learn over the next 15 minutes? Well, three things, folks. I want to focus on three specific things. Number one, getting customers, okay, when many people think it's very hard right now to get customers. Number two, some pretty darn creative growth tactics to be using right now in this new remote environment. And lastly, the lifeblood of any company, the founder's number one job: do not run out of cash. We're going to talk a lot about cash strategies that are off the beaten path. You guys already know about the great VCs SaaStock is featuring here. We're talking about alternative strategies, which I hope you enjoy. So let's not waste time, folks. Let's jump right in and talk about customers. Way to grow your customer base when you think you can't. Now, these are tactics that I have used and tools that I've used to grow my first SaaS company, and now the SaaS stuff I'm working on today, whether it's the podcast, the book sales, the newsletter growth, etc. Here's the first tool. I'll let you look at the screen and then explain how I use it. Now you might go, wait a second, that tool? Substack? I thought that was just an email newsletter tool. Well, consider this. Millions of people subscribe to influencer Substacks. It's almost like LinkedIn, except instead of connecting with an influencer you want updates from, you're subscribing to their list. And these Substack writers like Matt Stoller actually send an email blast out to their list via the Substack ISP every time they post new content. In many cases, all of their email subscribers pay for the content. So think about it. If you could find a Substack writer that matched your niche, wouldn't it be really valuable for you to get placement in that email blast? Now, you can do this a variety of different ways and partnership strategies, but the important thing is to go on and actually find how to do it. So let me go in and let's use a real example. I'm going to go to substack.com here and share my screen with you guys and actually walk through an example with one of you guys and one of your businesses based off what you guys put in the chat. So again, go ahead and tell me what business you're working on while I open up Substack. And I'll use one of you guys. Hey, Jurgen, good to see you. Yako, good to see you, man. Sebastian, good to see you. And another one here. Okay, Puneet, you said you're working on customer success. That's great. Martin is working on siteimprove.com. Guys, I'm reading your chat right now. I'm going to use one of you guys as a real life example. Leroy Beebe is checkthelevel.com. It's a collaboration platform for residential contractors that organizes communication. James, I see you over there as well. James Smith, very good. So let's say, okay, Hadley is a spreadsheet with business data. Good. Ben, the SaaS CFO, good to see you, Ben. So guys, let me pick one of these examples. So let's say you're a business collaboration tool. So what you'd want to do to find a partner with potentially a large audience to drive to your tool is do something like this. Okay, and I see Martin Erkson, workforce management software. This is great. So let's obviously first focus on business. We're going to scroll down here on Substack to browse top writers. And I'm then simply going to search. Now there's paid and free publications. Remember, as SaaS founders, all we care about is just big distribution to a large set of potential customers. So we'll go in here and start scrolling both across free publications and paid publications. And so one thing you'll see as we scroll down, you'll see a newsletter and podcast for all the good kids. Well, that's not really relevant, right? Remote work opportunities, resources, and communities. That could be a good one, right? That could be a good one. Maybe here, Breadth by Harry Lucas, become a better software engineer one email at a time, launched a month ago, right? Now, these are featured on Substack's homepage, which means they likely have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of readers each. And so all you have to do to build a partnership here is reach out to now Harry Lucas. You can find him on Twitter or anything and say, hey, I read his Substack for a week, say I love your content or I don't like your content, give him some honest feedback, and then propose and say something like, hey, our tool that we sell to software engineers, which is who his list caters to. So if you're a DevOps tool, this is a great fit. We think we'd be a great fit in one of your newsletters. I put a little blurb together that adds value to your readers and doesn't even read like an advertisement. would you include us in your newsletter? Does that make sense? Tactic 1, Substack.com influencer partnerships. Guys, scale it at 0 to 10, 10 being, okay, haven't heard of that before. I kind of like it. I'm going to stick around for this Nathan guy with a weird comb over. 0 to 10 in the comments. What do you guys think? I'm watching. The more vibes I feel from you guys, the better I feel. Christian Owens from Paddle is on, obviously a great up and coming fintech tool. He could do the same thing in here. Partner with Alex Danko's Substack. Obviously, a lot being written there about fintech companies in general. So Substack is a great tool for that. Let me give you guys one more, just like dopamine hit real quick. Another great tool for this that nobody knows about, or very few people know about, is a tool called Paved.com. Paved.com. Have you guys heard of these guys? Yes or no? Yes or no? Sanjay said 10. Zonder said 10. Jenny said 10. David Lilly said 9. David is like that teacher in middle school that would never give you a perfect score because they didn't believe in perfect. They'd always say on your report card, B+, always room for improvement. David Lilly, I'm just kidding, man. I'm just messing with you. All right. What is Paved.com? Well, guys, at my first SaaS company, Heyo, I spent so much time trying to find people to partner with, affiliates basically. And you would never know how big their list was or what their open rate was or what their click-through rate was. And you waste a lot of time with partners that never actually worked out. So check this stuff out. Let's say you're selling a tech tool to tech people. You could go into Paved.com. It's a marketplace of email lists. Duh, right? Why hasn't anyone built this before? It makes perfect sense. Let's look at Technopedia Technology. 182,000 subscribers here. Okay, if we scroll down, you can see all their demographics to understand. So for Christian at Paddle, he can read this and figure out if this demo matches potential signups for Paddle. Now, in this case, I would say probably no, because it's not fintech oriented. But for some of you guys that sell to tech people, it might be. And the next question is it working? Well, first off, if you see your competitor listed here, meaning your competitor is probably advertised on the list before, you definitely want to go there. Datadog, obviously, I know a lot of you guys compete with Datadog or you're close to Datadog. So let's look at their economics. They have 182,000 subscribers. This is what the ad placement looks like, okay, right there in the thing. What's the open rate? Well, it says it right here, 4.5% and a 0.3% click-through rate. Okay, it costs $750 to pay for that placement. So let's do the math. $182,000 at a 0.3% click-through rate. That's 5,460 clicks for $750. Yes or no? Who wants a 20-cent cost per click? I mean, hello, this is cheaper than Google AdWords, people. Hopefully this one tactic alone just opened up a bunch of opportunities for you guys and made your SaaStock remote time completely worth it. 0 to 10, 10 in the chat. So that was second tactic. Substack, another one, Paved. Use dedicated emails. Again, feel free to give me 7, 8, 9, 10, 0 if you hate the comb over in the chat. I'm watching, but this is a great tool, Paved.com. Guys, feel free to contribute in the chat too. If you have other ideas, other places you find email lists to partner with, put it in the chat right now. It's a great way to coordinate with everyone. Those of you that have your own email list, yes, you can also use Paved as a publisher and actually make money from your list. Okay, so those are tactics 1 and 2. Okay, Substack and Paved. Let's get into next segment, right? Which is creative ways to drive growth, right? So let's say you have found one of these lists to partner with. And the next question is, well, let's say you're marketing your webinar. What do you do to close sales? Okay, so part 2, creative ways to drive growth in the new remote world. Now I have to start with a big $6.5 million mistake. Can you guys see this highlighted on my screen? Do you know what that is? If you look very carefully, you'll see the date is October 20th, 2011. I was at Virginia Tech studying architecture, was just getting into my freshman year, and was launching my software company, which was called Lejour at the time, but eventually Heyo. We grew it to about $1.5 million run rate and got this email, or actually it was an LOI, letter of intent from iContact, to buy our company for $6.5 million. My reply to this LOI was a massive mistake. I'll get to that in a second. Back to our email newsletter partnerships. Let's say you set up a webinar or a virtual event like we're doing right now. This is the framework. This is the skeleton I follow to drive crazy amounts of engagement on your online events, because all of you guys have been to sessions at other virtual events where you sit and the speaker talks at you and goes through slides for like 40 minutes. It's so boring. You minimize it, etc. This is the framework to follow to figure out how to do this. So the time span you see here across the bottom, if you look at the slides, okay, right up there, you'll see the timestamps across the bottom of the slide. Those are the minutes in the webinar. So 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes through the end. Here are the 3 things you want to layer on that webinar. Every 10 minutes or so, you got to break your audio. A lot of you guys listening right now, my audio is now the new normal and you're able to ignore it. I have to pattern break. The way you do that is ideally you unmute someone to join you live, or you play a YouTube video, or you have a co-host on and you go back and forth. But you want to do that once every 10 minutes to break up your audio. That appeals to ears, okay? Ears. That appeals to everyone's ears, listening, gets them listening. Second, how do you get people to not minimize your demos or your webinars? This is the key to that as I move to my next slide. See what I just did there? Any one of you guys who maybe minimize this screen here on Hopin at SaaStock Remote, you probably just opened it back up to see the screen because I said I'm going to the next slide. That's a good way to keep people looking, and it's the tactic I'm teaching on this slide to you guys right now. You want to say things like, do you see this pattern right here? Can you read this text? I'm going to the next slide. Because for anyone who's only listening to you, that will trigger them to start looking again, because I guarantee you a large portion of your audience has probably minimized you at some point. So looking is the second tactic here. Lastly, kinesthetic. You want to actually get their muscles moving, doing something. So you want to say things like, take notes, answer this poll. I've already done this with you guys. I said, tell me in the question, 0 to 10, 10 being best. What's it look like? Okay. So you want to layer these 3 things on top of each other to get crazy amounts of engagement when you are presenting or doing live events, whether it's a webinar or a demo. Okay. So this is the money shot. We have a full PDF I can send to this to you guys. It's the same thing we use to drive our $5 million at sales at Heyo. All you have to do, take a screenshot right now of this screen with me presenting in this slide, tweet it at us, use hashtag SaaStock Remote. Be sure to tag me at Nathan Latka. Just screenshot it right now and I'll follow via Twitter DMs after this and send you guys all the PDFs for that webinar formula. But that's the key. And what you see here at the end is when you enter the sales pitch on the webinar, you want to unmute people and let them sell your product. So put up your offer and say things like, hey, Dan, I just saw you purchased, or I know you're a customer. Why'd you buy? Then be quiet and let them say, I love your product. It's amazing. It's great. And you'll see more sales come in. All right. Now, when they stop selling as much, you go, oh, we lost Suzanne. We lost Peter. Jeffrey, I see you just bought. Why'd you buy? And before you know it, guys, you're running like a real life HGTV driving sales for your enterprise SaaS products. I mean, this is gold stuff. Okay. So first tactic there, webinars. Second tactic, podcasts. Consider it, but you cannot be lame. Now, this is my show. From all I know, I haven't seen anyone else with more downloads. In the SaaS space, we've got the most downloads by far. And it's not because I'm smarter than anybody. It's because I'm way more entertaining. And that comes with some blowback. You get a lot of press outlets that write nasty things about you. You get intros like Steven's where you're wondering, is this good? Is this bad? But then it turns out very good. So Steven, I appreciate that. And you get founders who are going, oh my gosh, this is like a crazy podcast. You have to be entertaining on your podcast in order to earn the right to educate. I cannot beat that in your head. I talk to so many really stubborn, smart people that think if they just go live and say smart stuff, people will watch. They won't. I guarantee you there's a more talented person, a talented entertainer than you, who's way less smart than you, that has a much larger audience because they're entertaining. Entertain first, educate second. You must entertain, and that's what makes the podcast a success. So I'm going to pause here real quick. You guys give me yeses or nos in the questions real quick. Are you thinking about launching a podcast for your SaaS company? And if so, I will take 2 minutes and show you my podcast flow, how we've produced 800 episodes at fairly low cost and got 10 million downloads. Again, but I will let you guys tell me if you want that content in the chat here on Hop. And if you don't, I'll jump into the next category, which is cash. Okay, which is cash. Okay. Let's see. I'm watching guys' comments. Gordon said yes. Mike said yes. I'm reacting real time here to you guys. Puneet said yes. Okay, I'm going to show you very quickly. Here's how we do podcasts. Okay. It starts off, I record the interview. I go then into Google Drive and I type in, episode whatever, 2260, the episode I want to give it. Now we've recorded over 2,200 episodes. I've opened up this one, which is actually the one I did with Hopin CEO Johnny, right? And so what you see here is there's an two audio files, my voice, his voice, and the video. This then goes to a Fiverr audio person who I pay $5 per episode, who then takes this episode and schedules it in the back end of our Libsyn account. Okay, so Libsyn is what I use for podcast hosting. You can see here again all the downloads, right? How that works. But he comes in here and actually schedules it in content, right? So it's content scheduled for release, right? And you'll see here we're scheduled through June. Well, today this is already released, but he comes in and does the metadata and all that. He pulls those titles from, I use Airtable. Okay, so I use Airtable to categorize all this. When I record the interview right off the bat, I actually write the episode title right here so that my audio guy can actually just copy this into Libsyn and get it going. So this is how we produce so many episodes so rapidly. I hope that's helpful. Okay, so that's the podcast, guys. Raj, Veronica, Ian, Zandra, Zainab, James Smith, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. That's how we do that so quickly. All right. Okay, next portion that I want to jump into. I want to take a quick pause though, guys. Any questions there on the podcasting stuff? Any questions on the podcasting stuff? Are we good there? I'm watching your comments, so you guys can let me know if you've got questions. I will jump into them, no questions asked. All right. Okay, so again, that is how we do the podcast. And that, again, entertain first. That's the key thing. The last thing I want to touch on is cash, right? Getting cash from new places. So back to that mistake that I talked about earlier on in this presentation, this big, beautiful letter. Now, there are businesses where VC makes a lot of sense. Now, I was a 19-year-old building my software company in the mountains of Southwest Virginia. I didn't know what Silicon Valley was. So when this guy, you can see highlighted right here, and the tech team will blow this screen up full screen so that you guys can read it. You see here, it says Randall Kirk, the fund's CEO, right, is a nod that implies validation from Southwest Virginia's first billionaire and one of the biggest names in investing. So we got essentially Randall Kirk, this billionaire, to invest $2 million in our company. All the press covered it. Guys, it felt so good. It felt so good. I'm sitting there, I'm ringing my bell, I'm going, money, baby, this feels great. Until you look at this. This is our cap table. Now, if you guys are not a founder, you're watching, you might not understand this. If you are a founder, you will. Just give me some context real quick, guys. If you're a founder type founder in the hop-in chat, I'll come back to that in a second. But if you're a founder on the founding team, you know what I'm looking at right here. These are the percents of equity that each person owns in the company. So up here, 2.88%, right? That was an early angel investor. That 0.76%, a special developer, another angel, one of my co-founders at 5%, me at 38%, a co-founder at 8%, and it keeps going on. We have the adult supervision COO at 8.9%. That was a big mistake, but we had to do it because of the VCs. Then CFO, marketer, advisor, et cetera. But look at what the Series A and angels had, okay? Almost 28%. So essentially what happened was when I got that $6.5 million acquisition offer that I just showed you guys, it was blocked. They put in $2 million. They wanted an exit of like $20 million to make money, but this would have put a significant amount of money in my pockets because this was before I raised when I still owned 60% of between 60 and 80% of the business. So long story short is what options are there now for founders, right, to generate cash where they can take a deal when they want it. In our case, we had to wait to 2016 and end up selling for not as big a price as we could have. Well, there's this new kind of cash that a lot of founders are working with, and it's called debt. So because of the show, I've had on these kind of founders. We had on, Freshworks founder. We had on Automatic, Matt Mullenweg. We got the exclusive interview when they announced that they were acquiring Tumblr from Yahoo. GitLab, Sid came on. They're about to IPO. We had Frank Bean on 18 months before he sold to Google for $2.6 billion. All these folks, almost all of them, have used debt to keep more equity of their company. And so what happened was I started helping founders raise debt, and I got to see term sheets from Lighter Capital, Espresso Capital, Scaleworks, Tamiya Capital. There are hundreds of debt providers today. In fact, I did so many of these deals, right? The Wall Street Journal and a lot of these folks said, Nathan, write a book on it. So I did, and it did very well. But the question for you guys as founders is, how does debt actually work? Well, on this slide, you see it's growing. You don't have to sell equity, right? And the question is, if you get $1 of debt today, can you get more than $1 plus the interest out 12 months from them? And the way you should think about this in terms of your options, in terms of cost to capital, is this way. On your left axis, you've got the cost. Think of it like an interest rate, right? If you get $1 today, from an equity perspective, you got to pay back $1.30 each year. Why is that 30 cents? Because top tier venture capital firms sell a 40% IRR to their limited partners. They need to earn a 40% effective interest rate every year they have their LPs' money. It's expensive capital, but it can be strategic at times and meaningful. Below that, you've got convertible notes and safes. You've got these new seals from Tiny Seed, Earnest, and Indie VC. You've got the RBFs, or revenue-based financings, which can still be pretty expensive, between 20 and 35%, because this is money you guys are going to pay back, where if you get $100,000 today, you pay it back for between 4 and 10% of your monthly recurring revenues. So if you grow, you pay it back faster, which is weird. It drives your cost of capital up. Under that, you've got a new type of debt capital. I'll call it Latka debt capital for a second, 12 to 20% interest rates. And then lastly, you've got senior debt from the SVBs of the world. Again, great partners when you're later stage if you've raised 10, 20, 30 million bucks of VC and you have scale. But what if you wanted to get cheap money earlier on? Well, we started doing some analysis on SaaS companies using a little side project we spun up at makermetrics.co, where people can connect their banks, their Stripe accounts, and essentially spit out a debt offering. And then I help them go essentially find a debt provider. And the key question that I end up asking all founders is, if you had this much money today, say it was a $200,000 loan, how much new MRR could you add over 6 months? And here's why that question is important. Let's say that blue spot at the top, let's put in 200 grand right there, okay? At 16% interest rate over a 4-year term. Anyone have any guesses on what your monthly payment is? Just do an exercise in your head, guys, real quick. Type in the chat. If you had 200 grand today, how much MRR do you think you could drive in the next 12 months? Is it 2 grand? Is it 10 grand? Could you make 100 grand a new MRR from a $200,000 investment today? What's the number? Now that you have that number, take it and compare it to your monthly payment. So to pay back that 200 grand over 4 years, it's 5,600 bucks a month. So if you're able to generate more than 5,600 bucks
and I'm a principal
in new MRR,
where I focus on investing in
based off the $200,000 that you raised, you're able to basically grow your company totally on debt capital's back without having to sell any equity.
Many don't know,
right?
is that I'm also one of
So you can see your kinds of terms and debt providers and things like that by visiting makermetrics.co, and you can see all what these terms would look like for you. But this is the key thing to think about: is how cheap can you get this sort of debt capital, and what does the payback look like? Now, I've put together like a massive spreadsheet with all of this in it. I'm happy to text it to you guys or whatever after this, but I want to get to Q&A before we wrap up. You can text me at this number, 415-237-9869. I'm going to hang out after this presentation for 10, 20 minutes, respond to all those texts, and I can text you. There's about 80 options to raise debt capital. Many of them actually are great sponsors of SaaStock. These are folks like, Lighter Capital, SaaS Capital, Tamia Capital. There's hundreds of providers out there. So I'll get you a list of all those with their sample terms as well. All right. So guys, just to summarize what we talked about today, we talked about customer. I told you at the beginning, we talked about customers. So I showed you Paved and Substacked. We talked about creative growth. I showed you the webinar formula we use and how to get a podcast going. And lastly, we wrapped up talking about additional cash options for founders as you guys look to scale your business in the middle of this crisis. So with that being said, what I want to do now is I'm going to stop screen sharing the slides. I'm going to look back here. So Tim O'Shea, you were saying 200K, which is great. I assume that's you saying that you would make 200K off of a 200K investment, which is obviously a great return. Let me put up something on the screen here while we wait. Who else? Praveen said 12K. Sanjay said 20K. Let's see. Carlos is sticking a nice little ad in there, which is wonderful. James is a founder. Yeah, guys. So I'm reading. I see a lot of you guys are founders. This is great. I imagine a lot of you guys have probably looked at debt capital. Tim said ARR. That was, to be honest. Okay. Yeah, Tim, 200K in ARR is great. If you can take 200K today and make 200,000 bucks in ARR, there's nothing wrong with that. If you guys want to compare like some of your cash flow to other folks in your industry to look at, like Tim, what your payback could be on any money you take today, one of the things I encourage all of you guys to do, especially if you launch a podcast, is figure out ways to contextualize it outside of the show. So one of the things that we've done, back to what I was talking about earlier, for example, the Hopin interview I did with Johnny, when I had him on, not only does that go live on YouTube, right, where about 5,800 people have watched it, but it also goes up on getlatka.com, which is just a big database of all the podcast interviews. But we flag all the data points that Johnny verbally gave in the interview. So you can click them and actually go hear them when he says them in the episode. But more importantly, you can go back and sort on SaaS database and actually find other companies that are either really profitable around your price point, right? So you have ACV price points here, or really not profitable based off your price point, and back into some of their CACs. Stephen, I think I hear you coming on. I hope you either have a very uncomfortable question for me.
I've met you a couple of times, Nathan, and you are a teddy bear. A slightly more sensitive teddy bear than I thought now. Come on. But listen, let me clarify. Your podcast is beautifully structured, very entertaining, very insightful, and I've met very few people who can deconstruct a business in as short a time as you can. I've seen you do it on stage as well. You're very slick at it. You're brilliant at it. So no question about any of that. I just like to throw a little clanger in there every now and then. Actually,
I love it. I need smarter enemies, Stephen. I need smarter enemies. I love it.
Oh, don't play yourself down. You're very smart. There's no question about that. Quick question for you: why did you decide to? Because I know you've made a decision to get those podcasts out much more quickly after they're recorded.
Yes.
And you've also, and I'm actually wondering, are you going to? Because you've always interviewed at all levels. Are you going to interview more at a kind of a medium to upper level? Is that going to change? Or are you going to still get the very early guys in? Has any of that been influenced by the pandemic or anything? Tell me why these changes.
Yeah, you guys can see on my screen here, right? When I sort all the interviews by revenue, we've interviewed 614 companies with less than $1 million in revenue, right? And then we've interviewed, there's obviously a spread, right? We've also interviewed 330 that have north of 10 million in revenue. And then there's a sweet spot right in the middle, right? Where you're between 2 and 8 million in revenue. That we've interviewed 388 companies. Stephen, what I'll tell you in terms of the pandemic, we're not changing how we're doing interviews, but I'm definitely changing the kinds of questions I'm asking. And the questions sound more like, how much runway do you have? How long could you ride out an economic collapse? And people are now saying, instead of, it used to be 12 months, you're now consistently hearing 18, 36, 24 months. So people are planning for the long term.
Very good. Very, very interesting. As always, incredibly entertaining. And thank you for engaging so many of the participants and getting to their questions. Definitely always one of the talks where there's the most amount of takeaways, practical takeaways. Thanks for kind of opening the hood on it and sharing it all with us. Thanks very much, Nathan Latka.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, guys.